protect intellectual property at that point? In the United States, the intellectual property, if you're on the job, it belongs to the job, but in Europe it isn't. How do you protect, or is there an issue of protection when you're talking about sharing the knowledge that you have created?
There's absolutely an issue. It's not one that, us Berkeley people think about much. Because we believe in, making the world a better place just by the free sharing of all love and information.
You're not going to pretend yet.
I know. But that's a great question. I did not ask United Healthcare, and they probably have some. You sign your life away when you take the royalty check that says all this content's ours. But in a multinational environment, that would be very interesting. I wonder in wikis and blogs, I wonder in wikis, for example, global wikis, Wikipedia, I wonder how that's handled. If I put if I contribute something to Wikipedia, is it now Wikipedia's intellectual property, or do I somehow maintain auxiliary rights to that? It's a very good question. But I think at the end of the day, the only way to encourage co-creation is for the student to give up their rights to the intellectual property. I think it's the only way we could manage it, probably.
I guess I can see the value in some of these concepts, but there's also value in the traditional system because it was structured, because it does provide classification, systems of classification, codification so you can access that data.
Skills cataloging,
yes,
yep.
There's all those kinds of things. To me, that's one of the biggest challenges right here, is because if you create these more granular objects of knowledge, I know that's a good word, I'm not an expert in this field, but as
KOs.
Pardon me?
Knowledge objects.
Okay, knowledge objects. How do you access them? How do you interrelate them? Who does the cataloging to decide how knowledge is accessed?
The system does it.
How does the system is it search engines? Is it,
It's Google kind of made a few $1 billion with some pretty fancy algorithms around searching, but not but relevance. That's why I put up this concept of contextual searching. Contextual searching is what Google does, but doing it tied to relevance. And it doesn't, in some places, it's very hard to do, or it doesn't exist at all. So that's a good question. We're talking now about liquefying those knowledge objects. If you look at a blender, it's like chunk, blend, liquefy is the So we want to make them absolutely as small and consumable and easily taggable as possible.
Yeah, but Google doesn't do it to relevance, though, does it?
No.
Pardon?
Google does not work to relevance.
That's right. It's not fully contextual.
And therefore, it's fine for a World Wide Web, but it's not going to find that nugget. And that's the issue.
No, it's not. And how do you measure relevance to an individual?
And if you liquefy it too much, you don't know what context it was set in, and so it's taken out of context, and that happens all the time.
And you may
So you've got to structure it so that that thought is captured as an object.
With integrity.
Right.
So if you liquefy anything down to its atomic level, it loses integrity. So it has to. You're right. I mean, and the integrity, depending
How low to go.
how low do you go? Yeah. Yeah.
I think this is a very interesting discussion, and it's something we've had a real battle. I mean, heated battle between what we call trash can knowledge management, which is throw and it's probably equivalent to your liquefy. Throw everything in a dumpster, and then we're going to train agents and bots to go crawl it all and meta tag it. And then we're going to find the stuff you need. Now, that's just bullshit. It's similar to me going into your house, into your bedroom, and saying, look, I'm going to take everything in your closet and everything in your drawers, throw it in a big heap on the floor, and then I'm going to train these bots to find your blue socks. Now, and it's ridiculous. And of course, you knew where your blue socks were because you had a structure. You had a
Cataloging system.
A structure, a catalog, a taxonomy, and maybe even an ontology. So on one pole, we've got the folks that are the folks we call the trash can knowledge management people. On the other extreme, we have the rules-based.
The socks drawer people.
Well, yes, drawers, rules, okay? Where I work, it is a very rules-based culture. Rules-based culture means that you have structure. You have...
To the nth degree.
You know, okay, 51 separate documents list that on safety and mission assurance alone, okay, where I work at NASA. Okay, we have rules, we have structure, we have policies and procedures, and we structure and organize our knowledge artifacts and objects utilizing the rules-based structures that we have. There are times where I Google things. There are times where I use...
Do you find that rigid? I mean, the rules have to get in the way at some point.
I think it depends on the culture, though.
Yeah.
It depends on what the organization's mission is.
Yeah.
I think it depends, and that becomes kind of the learning, or the, I'm sorry, the learner's needs. If you're in a structure, you don't need mistakes at NASA.
Yeah.
That's what so Steve said. Yeah, I mean, we don't randomly, creatively think, how are we going to do this?
You can't allow
deorbit
people
burn,
to figure out how to fire weapons on their own.
You're going
That's too dangerous. You have to have some rules.
That's
physics.
Right. So I think it depends on the culture of the organization and what the purpose is that you're trying to do the knowledge management for.
Does that tie to relevance then? I think it ties to relevance. I mean, at the end of the day, relevance or context, right? The context around what you're doing and what you're doing might be very different than what maybe EDS is doing or someone who might be in a less ruled.
I get frustrated sometimes because having worked in the learning and KM side for a while, there's a lot of folks that are looking at the right side of your slides, all the just-in-time learning and let's go online and let's all, get this.
Let's all get along.
Stuff. Blogs and wikis, and this is how I'm going to learn, and they forget that there needs to be some structure. You couldn't do this if you couldn't read. You couldn't do this if you couldn't write. So there's got to be some innate structure in K through 12.
Yeah, that's. I mean,
Give you some fun.
And that's why the bridge. That's why the bridge is there, right? And so, do we want this or this, right? I don't think we want either. What we want is something potentially in between.
This or this.
Yeah, but the nexus is in the middle, and
read all that wacky stuff anymore.
But
yeah.
you have just as many people that are fanatically the other way. Everything has to be structured, and they don't want any leeway for an unstructured environment. And reality is, you're going to get better results by blending the two.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
In my game, where I'm totally immersed in search and classification, your middle bit there for me is the combination of precision and recall. You talk about Google. I don't want Google. Google is just recall. It's recall with no precision. I'm not interested.
Mm-hmm.
I want some structure with subject matter expertise, because my argument is that you cannot build ontologies or taxonomies devoid of subject matter expertise, which means you do need some...
Clearly, right. Okay.
And so I see in the middle there, I want precision without the loss of recall, because if I'm a lawyer, don't show me that you've not got every single document I could possibly look for. If I'm looking for New York Yankees, I still want to maybe see new cars at the bottom of the hit list. Problem is that Google gives me new cars near the top of the hit list. So I want precision, New York Yankees, but I may still want the whole of the recall.
But relevance.
I can't have that without some structure as well. So
That's right.
It's a combination.
And pardon me, trying to be slightly provocative, but at the same time, I mean, we have had a very serious, and it continues, the philosophical differences. But
Yes.
I just simply wanted to say that I certainly agree that it is a blend of taxonomy, structure, rules-based, with search tools, and for having all of our rules, we're also very much a culture of people who don't like to follow the rules. If you're in flight ops on the shuttle program, you're very, very operational, rules-based. You follow the rules. It's similar to working at Federal Aviation Administration. Very rigid, rules-based culture. But at the same time,
Fighter pilots don't follow the rules.
And we find ourselves that at our research centers, people are